Hi friends, I hope you're having a wonderful and hopefully warm day. It's currently -1 degrees here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and the garden is covered in 2 feet of snow and ice. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to talk all about dahlias. I just placed my dahlia order with Longfield Gardens. This isn't a sponsored video, but I do get all my dahlias from them. And I thought what I'd do is go through almost every single dahlia that they sell and talk about what the plant itself looks like, the plant's production in terms of how many blooms you can expect from that plant, and also maybe just some odd or off-the-wall observations of growing different dahlias, things that you wouldn't really know about from just looking at that individual square picture that they give you on the website. Take for instance, if you look at a picture of Marrow Star versus something like Rebecca's World. Marrow Star in that small square picture looks like a beautiful dinner plate dahlia. But once you grow that plant, you notice that the plant is quite short and that most of the blooms are born on the interior of the plant. So you're never really able to enjoy them unless you cut them. And since it's such a small plant, it's not really ideal for cutting. Then take something like Rebecca's World. It's such an amazing plant. It's covered in these blooms that range from red to burgundy to white to cream. And it's just covered in blooms from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, long, strong stems. And even though it's a cactus dahlia, it still has a long vase life. So that's what this video is really going to be about. We can click on these pictures and see their colors and their forms and everything like that. But I'm hoping today to give you some information from firsthand experience of either personally growing these blooms or my observation photographing them and providing videography for Longfield Gardens with the different growers around America that I work with. So without further ado, let's get right into what's going to be a very long dahlia video. Also, I should let you know the climate that I grow in because that will affect the height of the plant, the performance of the plant, and sometimes even the color. So I'm growing in South Central Pennsylvania. I work with growers in other areas too. Colorado, New Jersey, Maryland, and Western Pennsylvania. And I gather information from all of these growers, compile them together to then hopefully give an accurate description of the plant's color overall. So if you have vastly different experiences with any of these dahlias, please chime in the comment section below. If you don't mind telling us about your climate and your growing conditions, I think that is also very helpful. I only know what it feels like to grow in this climate where it's also quite rainy. And so all those things play a factor into how a plant performs at the end of the day. But now let's have some fun and dive right into this list. All right, so I selected pink. The first one that comes up is Great Silence. Great Silence, if you've never grown it before, you have to grow it. You're going to love it. It's peach, it's apricot, it's raspberry, it's nectarine, it's all the good colors mixed into one. The stems are a lovely deep purple color. Long, strong stems, good vase life, about 5 to 7 days, but just a wonderful bridge flower between one color and another. Let's talk about the next 3 blooms as a group. Cafe au lait, Breakout, and Labyrinth. So Cafe au lait, people have been crazy about that for I feel like the last 10 years, and it makes sense. It's that perfect buff wedding flower. Sometimes you're going to get a buff beige, sometimes you're going to get a light pink from it, depending on certain environmental factors. I feel like it's a great producer. It just doesn't have a great vase life. It's not going to last you a whole week in the vase, but at the same time, who cares? You know, that's the thing. I think a lot of people get hung up on vase life, but I think actually the shorter the vase life is, the more I cherish the flower. This isn't something that I continue to sell at the flower stand. Early on, I used to try to sell cafe au lait. Then I saw that it really only lasted a good 3 to 5 days in the base, and I stopped selling it at the flower stand. But for personal use, I love it. And it does have a high amount of blooms. per plant. Breakout. I feel like Breakout has a very bad vase life, but I still love it, and the flowers are huge. I also really like how huge the plant is. When I grew it in a raised bed, so that's going to take it up about 8 inches, it was taller than me, so it might have been pushing 6 feet tall here. It produces a lot of blooms, beautiful buffs and pinks on the blooms, and the leaves are really big too. I really liked how large the leaves were, but once again, not a great vase life. Labyrinth is so beautiful in person. Personally for me, and I'm the only one that's grown this one, Rebecca hasn't grown it, it was not a high producer of blooms per plant, but I still really enjoyed seeing them in the garden and bringing them inside the home. I did not feel that they had a great vase life, about 3 to 5 days, but I just loved that pinwheel effect that the petals had. Next up is a water lily dahlia called Creme de Cassis. I'm not sure why this is falling under the pink category. It's a purple dahlia. Maybe in the description someone says it has a hint of pink, and that's why they're putting it here. But it's definitely a purple dahlia, and it's stunning. So it has that beautiful water lily look to it where it appears more flat from the side, and then the petals curve outwards. So you really get a lot of nice dimension there on the side of the bloom. You know, this flower for me, this might just be something that just happened to me, but a lot of the heads were popping off when I was working with them. So my assumption is that the connection between the flower head and the stem is not very strong, and that's what was causing the heads to pop off. I could be in the minority here. Let me know what your experience has been with Creme de Cassis. In the garden, I loved it. I still use it in the vase because it's such a beautiful color. Next up is Belle of Barmera, and I have a lot of thoughts on this dahlia and also the picture that they're showing here on the website. Now, if I was to just look at this picture, at least on my computer screen, it looks peach. In person, Belle of Barmera is definitely not peach. It's orange with hints of pink in it. So take, for instance, the picture up above of Labyrinth. It's peach and pink. Belle of Barmera in the photograph here looks peach and pink, but it's not. It's orange. I did not feel that it produced very many flowers. It did not have a good vase life. I'm growing it again this year because I still love the sheer size of the bloom. It is huge. It is a true dinner plate dahlia, but vase life wasn't great. Flower production wasn't great, but you know, sometimes you just love the bloom and you grow it because of that. Next up is Burlesca. This is a pompon dahlia, so it's really small. Pompons are very small dahlias. This one I would actually say is larger for a pompon. Last year I grew Rocco, R-O-C-C-O, and that pompon was so teeny tiny. It was like this big. Burlesca is a little bit bigger. I would say it's probably an inch to an inch and a half across. The color is really great. You're getting, once again, that opalescent sheen to the petals. You're getting pink, you're getting peach, you're getting orange, you're getting a little bit of purple. So it's a really nice bridge flower, but it really has a unique color to it. It's almost something you have to see in person. You have so many colors working together at the same time. It's a great filler flower in bouquets, and that's how I used it in the past. On this next line of dahlias, we have Lavender Perfection, Odo's Thrill, Penhill Watermelon, and Sandra. So many great dahlias to talk about here, and so many questions for all of you about Penhill Watermelon. Let's start with Lavender Perfection. Oh my gosh, this is another one. You have to grow it. You know, when I first saw Lavender Perfection, I think it was in full sun, and I said to Rebecca, that's not lavender, that's pink. And she's like, oh no, you know, in the evening it really does look lavender. So the great thing about lavender perfection is that depending on the time of day, it really does take on a different color. And I love that. It's something else we can look forward to with this flower. So you're going to get that nice lavender color in the morning hours and the evening. Inside, it definitely appears more lavender, but in full sun, it does look pink. Oh, Grace is getting mad. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. It was actually my husband. He needed a scarf because he said the wind chill out there is insane. Something else great about lavender perfection is that the plants are born on really long stems, strong stems. For being a dinner plate dahlia, I felt like it had a good vase life. I did feel like I got a solid 7 days out of those blooms, and I even had them near our fireplace, so that's saying something. If I had had them in the kitchen or the dining room, maybe I could have got 9 days out of these blooms. So many flowers on the plant. I just cannot say enough good things about lavender perfection. Next up is Odo's Thrill. In contrast to Lavender Perfection, which has a good vase life for a dinner plate dahlia, I do not feel like Odo's Thrill had a good vase life. The plant puts out a decent amount of blooms. I think it is worth growing if you're just going to use it in the garden and you want huge hot pink blooms. This is the dahlia for you. But if you want a hot pink dahlia for cutting, I'm not sure this is the right choice. Every time Rebecca and I tried to get this one to last longer than about 3 days in the vase, we just couldn't do it. We tried every conditioning method there was on it and nothing seemed to work. And I also did not like the way it died in the vase. Certain flowers die differently in the vase, and when the petals on the back really start to get mushy from behind and then the whole thing just mushes down, it's just so sad to see that. I hate seeing a flower die like that. Some flowers will dry in the vase for you. Some dahlias will dry in the vase for you, but Odo's Thrill, not one for cutting in my personal opinion. Next up, Penn Hill Watermelon. Here's the thing. I have tried to grow Penn Hill watermelon for I don't even know how many years, maybe 5 or 6 years. I have never gotten the correct tuber, not only from Longfield, but also from other locations. So I don't know what's going on over in Holland with this tuber, but if you've grown Penn Hill watermelon, will you please tell us what your experience with it is? Does it have a good vase life? Does it produce a lot of flowers? What is the height of the plant for you? And just any observations that you have about Penn Hill watermelon. Next up, let's compare Sandra and Stolz von Berlin. Okay, Sandra or Sandra, I still don't know which is right. I'm so sorry. Let me know if you know. This is the perfect hot pink dahlia for cutting. I do not think there is a better hot pink dahlia for cutting. Now, I am a little bit sick of this dahlia personally because I've been growing it for a couple years. Rebecca's been growing it for a couple years. And you know what's a positive but also a negative? It's so perfect. It's so uniform. It's so consistent that there's almost nothing to look forward to. I'm not going to grow it anymore just because I know what to expect from the plant. But this is also such a great plant for cutting because the leaves stay around the 2 to 3 foot mark, and then the stems are really long. Sandra's blooms are at the top. The plants are covered in blooms. You can just cut it all day, every day. It'll keep producing. It blooms early in the season, all the way until the first frost. I can't say enough good things about Sandra, but I am kind of sick of her. And maybe also the fact that she's just pink. You know, there's really no other color going on there. It's just pink. So now let's talk about Stolz von Berlin. As I said, with Sandra, the leaves are down here, nice long stem, flowers up here. With Stolz von Berlin, the flowers are just a little bit higher than the leaves themselves. So, you know, if the leaves are right here, your blooms are going to be right here. Why does that matter? You have to clean off more of the foliage. I never thought about that early on when I was growing cut flowers. But the fact that you can pick Sandra and basically not have to strip any of her leaves off, that makes a really big deal when you're cutting hundreds of dahlias. Now I should say that by the time we got into October, these plants were covered in flowers. And if you want a dahlia that looks great in the garden, this is probably the better dahlia, because overall having the blooms lower on the plant looked nicer. You know, with Sandra, it's so obviously a dahlia for cutting. With, you know, Cornell and Cornell Bronze and Marn, they're so obviously there for cutting. This one is more of a nice, almost shrubby dahlia. Tons of blooms, a true baby pink. Looks just like the picture. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Sweet Natalie. You know what, friends? Sometimes for me, when a color or a flower gets really popular, I tend to want to pull away from it. Also, as I get older, I much prefer a stronger, deeper colored flower. I want bright, bold flowers in my garden. But if you want subtle, gentle, buff, creams and light pinks in your garden, then Sweet Natalie is a great choice. It's been popular for a long time. It's reliable. I'm so sorry, I just don't personally like it. Is that okay? I'm sorry guys, I just don't like it. Friends, if you like Sweet Natalie, chime in with your thoughts on it. I haven't grown it in a while just because I'm not really in to that color palette. Okay, hold on to your seat, folks, because we're about to talk about one of the most gorgeous dahlias I've ever seen, with the most unique coloring I've ever seen. She's called Bacardi, and to grow her is to love her. What color is she? Let's see how Longfield described her. Imagine a sun-bleached 1940s fabric in shades of burgundy and rose. Dark centers and dark stems adds to this variety's appeal. Here's the interesting thing about Bacardi. Okay, first, great for cutting. Really long stems with not a lot of foliage on them. I would say it produces a large amount of flowers, but not as much as something like Sandra. It holds up well in the vase. Time out for how gorgeous this thing dries. If you're into drying dahlias, you have to grow this one. It dries the same color that it is in the field. And I want to point that out because when you dry some dahlias, take for instance Sweet Love. When you dry Sweet Love, which is pink and white, it dries purple. A lot of the yellows can turn brown on you. So you never really know what's going to happen when you dry dahlias, but this one looks just as gorgeous as a dried flower as it does fresh. Are the stems weak or strong? They're somewhere in the middle, but it's definitely worth growing. I want to talk a little bit about Totally Tangerine and a peony flowering dahlia called Fascination. Totally Tangerine is an anemone form of dahlia. We've got the peony form Fascination. The bees and the butterflies love these flowers so much, especially Fascination with that open center. One year I saw Fascination growing at Longwood Gardens in their sunken garden. Oh my, it was so gorgeous. It's a tall plant, puts out a decent amount of blooms, but really if you love the pollinators, you want to get an open-faced dahlia. I'm moving on to page 2 of the pinks now, and let me just pick out a few that we can talk about. Let's talk about Jowie Winnie, Sweet Love, but I also want to talk about Onesta and the whole Onesta series because I do not feel like the photographs do them justice, and I am working hard to get better photographs of that entire series for the website. Okay, let's start with Jowie Winnie because in this picture it looks a little more buff than how I remember it being here. So whether this is a photography issue, whether this is environmental factors making the color different, I'm not really sure. In the first picture, Jowie Winnie looks like it's a peach dahlia. Now, if you click over to that fourth image, you'll see it here in my garden. That's how it looks when I've grown it. It's more of a salmon. It's more coral. It's not dusty. I see sometimes Jowie Winnie described as dusty. Friends, correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong, or maybe I've gotten the wrong tubers over the years, but it is not dusty by any stretch of the imagination for me. It is full on brightly colored salmon. Lots of blooms on Jowie Winnie, reliable, long vase life, and it dries well. So let's take a close look here at Sweet Love. It's been a while since I've grown Sweet Love, but I do remember it being very tall. Down here it says it grows 48 inches tall. Mine was growing in a raised bed, so that's probably accurate. I felt like it was about 5 foot 5 inches tall for me here in South Central Pennsylvania. If you click over to the third picture, you'll see where I've used it there in a vase in the garden. You know what, once again, I feel bad. I feel like I cannot give an accurate criticism of any of these lighter pink blooms because I just don't really care for those colors. So if you like Sweet Love, let me know. Personally, it's a little too sweet for me. It feels a little young for where I am in my life, but it is beautiful. If you like light pink, if you like white, I think you really will like Sweet Love. And like I mentioned before, it's very interesting to see how Sweet Love turns from pink to purple when you dry it. Onesta is amazing. It's a water lily form, and the one that's just called Onesta, because later on we'll see white Onesta, it's pink. It does have a little bit of purple in it. It's so beautiful. It does not get enough credit. I'm not sure if it's the photograph that they're using. I don't know what's going on, but also a lot of times water lilies don't last a long time in the vase. Onesta does have a good vase life for a water lily dahlia. I felt like I got a good 5 to 7 days from it. I think what I really loved about this, you know, when you look at the center of this dahlia, and it's even more prominent in person, it really is purple as you go in towards the center. And that makes a big difference between being really excited about a flower and just being like, oh, it's just pink. Also, here's the thing with Onesta and white Onesta. It looks beautiful as a landscape plant, and it also is a great cut flower. It's that perfect middle ground. Bahama Mama has a great vase life, and once again, it has so many colors going on all at once. And the plant, once again, just like Sandra, does not have a lot of leaves on the stem itself. Leaves down here, bare stem, flower. Decent connection between the flower head and the stem itself. Stems, I would say, are on the thinner side, but still seem to be strong. Dries beautifully, and I just love how you're getting peach and pink and cream and purple from that plant all at the same time. This is really a must grow in my book. You know, sometimes when I see a picture of something on a website, I think, oh, that's fine. But then I see it growing in real life and I think, oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. That was my experience with growing Bahama Mama. Thomas Edison is going to look like Diva, just looking at that square picture. Thomas Edison is much bigger than Diva in real life. The flower is much bigger, the color similar. It's really just a matter of the bloom size that's different. In fact, I think I have a picture. Let's click on this together. I think I have a picture of Thomas Edison and Diva in a vase together. Yes, and there you can really see how big Thomas Edison is in comparison to Diva. And it's nice to see them in the vase together, isn't it? To see that they really are the same exact color. Now, hold the phone for lilac time. Have you grown lilac time? If not, what are you doing with your life? What am I doing with my life? Because all I should really be growing next year is lilac time. But you know, I can't just choose just one dahlia to grow. But how many flowers are really lilac at the end of the day? Not that many. So to find a lilac purple flower that is truly lilac, truly purple, I feel like is something we all need to grow in our gardens because it's just stunning. Hold on, I need to take a drink of water because I got way too excited about lilac thyme. Let's compare lilac thyme to lavender perfection. Rebecca had lavender perfection growing over here and lilac thyme growing over here last year. Here's what I noticed. Lavender perfection bloomed almost an entire month earlier than lilac thyme. Lilac thyme, it doesn't have a lot of leaves on the stem, but the flowers are just slightly deeper, not in the plant, but they're just a little bit deeper down. I think too, when we're just thinking about names and we hear lavender perfection, lilac thyme, we might think to ourselves, those are probably similar in terms of color. I really see a lavender perfection as more of a pink and lilac thyme as a true purple. I recall that lavender perfection bloomed almost an entire month earlier than lilac thyme. Could be just a coincidence, but I do remember that happened. Also, lilac thyme has the most stunning dark purple stems. You are going to love this plant. You want to get lavender perfection, you want to get lilac thyme. These are both winners in my book. If you love dinner plate dahlias, these are the ones to get. These are the kind of plants that are going to push out tons of blooms for you for a long amount of time. Let's talk a little bit about Shiloh Noel. Is this the most beautiful white, purple, slightly yellow dahlia that you've ever seen? Here's something where, in my experience growing it, it didn't pump out a lot of blooms, but when Rebecca grows it, she seems to be able to get a lot of blooms from her plants. The main difference between us, we only live about 10 minutes apart. She irrigates her field, and I really don't provide the dahlias with any supplemental water here. So if a dahlia is doing really well in my garden, that really says something for it because I'm giving it almost no water at all after that first initial month. Why is that? I'm not set up with irrigation. We get a lot of rain here, and also I have so much going on that a lot of times I just forget to get around to that. But it is something that I noticed, and I believe if you go back and watch the video where I took you on a tour of her field, you can really see Shiloh Noel in all its glory. Tamburo, wow. Rebecca grew this last year. It bloomed so early and put out so many blooms. But because of the way the flowers are born deeper in the plant, some are born deeper in the plant, some at mid-height and some high, it actually made harvesting take a while. And once I went back there a few times, I decided just to forgo harvesting any more of the flowers because it was too labor intensive, and also she was growing it through 2 levels of netting. So harvesting it took too long in my opinion. Instead, I would recommend Morella, and let me switch to the other page for that, or Rebecca's World. Actually, instead of that, if you want that look, you want that cactus look, I would get Rebecca's World instead. Some of the blooms on Rebecca's World are a true cranberry color. Some of them are white, some are white and cranberry. But once again, just like Sandra, the leaves are down low, stems are then tall and naked, flower on top. Tons of flowers all the time, non-stop flowering. You can cut them all off, come back, not even a week later. I think 5 days later, more buds all over the plant. And that's something too, not having to go down deep into the netting to cut all of these flowers really makes a big difference. It makes cutting much more enjoyable. Let's talk about Joey Morella now. I'm looking at some of the pictures here, and what I'm seeing is that these are definitely photographed when the sun is shining on the plant. I can even tell that probably this first picture is early morning. You click on the second picture, that's actually probably a studio shot. This picture here, the third one, is midday. So what I'm trying to say here is you're going to get more red from Morella depending on what time of day it is. I love taking pictures of flowers in the very early morning or very early evening, ideally on an overcast day. Then you can take them just about any time of day with reflectors. But these dahlias are, in my opinion, much darker red than what we're seeing on my computer screen, at least. You could even say they're almost black. And you guys know I love dark colored flowers. I love black flowers, dark burgundy, eggplant. That's where my heart is. I love dark colored blooms. I know this is one of Sarah Raven's favorite dahlias. It produces tons of stems. Okay, very important to note, the stems on Morella are so thick and so strong. These flowers lasted forever. In fact, I was sick of looking at them, and that's why I threw them away. They didn't go bad in the vase, friends. I must have had them in there for at least a week and a half. I was just sick of them and I wanted to see something else, so I pitched them. Amazing vase life. They dry really well. I dried a bunch of these and they turn an even deeper shade of red. I love this flower. I used to talk about Cornell a lot. Cornell is more of a mid-range red, but my heart is with Morella now. Now, if you want a mid-range red that has really strong stems and thick stems and puts out a lot of flowers, Cornell is great. But if you want something a little bit deeper, a little bit richer, a little bit more exciting, go with Morella. What's better than a dark colored flower? An orange flower. So let's talk about Marn. Let's talk about David Howard. Let's talk about Cornell Bronze. And let's talk about some others too, but they're probably on page 2 and 3. So the first one I see here when I click on orange is Marn. Here's the thing, this dahlia, I know I said this about Sandra, but you know, it's like how I said she's just pink. Marn is just orange. If you want a sherbet orange flower that puts out a lot of blooms, that's reliable, has long, strong stems, nice tall plant, definitely go with Marn. One time I talked to someone and they said they didn't know what the difference was between Marn and Cornell Bronze. Cornell Bronze is a little bit more dusty. You know, I wouldn't say it's peach. Is it peach? I don't know. It's so hard. It really depends on the lighting. You know, right? If we look at that first picture there, it looks peach, not my picture. Second picture, I think I did take that. You're seeing a little more orange, right? I'm almost seeing a little bit of brown there. Then that's my husband's hand holding Cornell Bronze. We can even see a little bit of yellow within the petals there. So you're getting a little bit of variation depending on the photographer, the time of day, but it is a little more dusty than Marn. Marn is just orange, a little more dimension there with Cornell Bronze. David Howard is such a wonderful dahlia. The blooms on David Howard are pretty large. I would say they're a little bit larger than something like Diva, maybe about the same size. So we've got a nice orange dahlia with exquisite, deep, dark purple foliage. So when you're getting that deep, dark purple foliage, dark foliage recedes into the background, and brighter, lighter colors come at you, you're really getting the best of both worlds there with David Howard, with the orange in front and the purple in the back. I love the structure of the plant. For me, David Howard is not really a plant I want to cut from. It's one I want to have in the garden and just enjoy the beauty of what the whole plant gives me in the landscape. Let's talk about brown sugar a little bit. And friends, I'm in the minority here. I know Rebecca loves brown sugar. I know a lot of other people love brown sugar. For me, I do not like this color, and I don't know why. There's something about this color that really bothers me, and I don't know what it is. It is kind of hard to describe. It's an orangey brown. It's orange with a little bit of brown, but it's also bright. So it has that brown, but it's not subtle and soft and unique and different. It's kind of brown, but it's in your face with that hot orange. I want to talk a little bit about Sunset Tropicana because this one really exceeded my expectations in terms of a landscape dahlia. Sometimes I'll end up growing certain dahlias because we don't have a good picture of it on the website yet. We only have that old studio picture. And it was such a wonderful landscape plant. The flowers are born somewhat deeper in the plant. It is kind of like Marrow Star in that way, but I liked the height of the plant. This one was more like 3.5 feet tall. Let's see what we're saying here. It says 3 feet tall. That's how I remember it. And you still could cut it. It was tall enough that you still could cut it and put it in a vase if you want. Another one that I grew a couple years ago in order to take pictures of it that really exceeded my expectation is Tahiti Sunrise. This is definitely one that I will grow again. I'm not growing it this year because it doesn't fit within my color palette, but it really was fantastic. And I don't even know if I can describe this accurately. It almost looked like a specialty carnation. You're getting so many colors, you're getting so much dimension. Oh my gosh, I don't know what my husband's doing out there. He's saving us from all this ice, but you're getting so much dimension, so much color. They almost reminded me of shells, if that makes sense. You know how when certain shells, seashells, hit the light, you get all that multi-dimensional color? That's how Tahiti Sunrise is. It was really so magical to see it in the morning and midday and evening and take pictures of it at different times of day and try to really capture its true essence. Here's my honest opinion. I can't remember if it had a good vase life or not. I obviously cut it because there's a vase from my house right here on the website that I'm looking at. But I just remember going out into the field and seeing that and thinking, wow, this really exceeded my expectation. It's really a winner in terms of a landscape plant, as a plant for cutting. And if you've grown it and can remember what the vase life is like, please let us know. I want to end our talk today with talking about Edge of Joy. I do not think that we switched over the pictures to any that I've taken, so I'll put up the one that's on the website, and then I hope I have some pictures of this one from a few years back when Rebecca grew it over in her field. Just like Rebecca's world, the flowers on Edge of Joy are each unique. So that's something to look forward to. They have an open center, so they bring in the pollinators like crazy. The flowers are born high above the plants, so it's really all about showcasing the blooms. There are tons of blooms on the plants, but I really want to do more videos like this to point out something that all suppliers do. They show us two pictures here, right? This picture, can you guys see that? Okay. This picture is probably taken in a studio or altered on some level. Maybe it's taken over in Holland, I don't know. And then we have this picture, and then we have a picture of tubers. Now I'm going to take you down here to pictures that I took of Edge of Joy in Rebecca's field, okay? You know, I'll put some of these images on the screen too. But, you know, just looking at that little square picture, would you have any idea that the tuber does this? And this is what we want, right? I mean, this is what I want. Here's another picture. And just see the variation between all of those blooms. And let me get one more picture for you that I took. Look at that, friends. All from the same tuber. And look how tall that is too, because you can see we've got about a 4-foot stake here. And look how nice and tall that is. And look how the plant is just smothered in blooms. So friends, I really hope that this type of video has been helpful. Please let me know your thoughts on it. As I say, everything that I said today can vary based on location, how you're treating the plants, climate, water, fertilizer, pesticides, all that stuff is going to affect a plant's performance, but especially when it comes to something like this, like Edge of Joy or Rebecca's World. I really wanted you to be able to see how good some of these dahlias are if we just pull back a little bit and see the plant in its full glory. Of course, we want to see the bloom. We want to be there with the bloom. But what if I just looked at that picture of Edge of Joy that they gave us on the website? Would I buy it? I don't think I would, but I would buy this, right? You know, and I know if people saw Tahiti Sunrise growing in the field and Sandra growing in the field, Edge of Joy, Rebecca's World, lavender perfection, lilac thyme. I feel like it's so helpful to see the actual plant growing in the field or in the garden. Well, friends, whew, I need some water, some tea, some coffee after all that. I don't know how much of my husband's plowing you could hear in this video, but I think we're going to be stuck inside for a while longer. So if you'd like another video like this on lilies or gladiolas or anything flower bulb related, please let me know. I want to wish you a wonderful day out there in your gardens, and I'll see you sometime real soon. Bye.